how do I set up my company's unique checklist? And so let's go back to the view that we were looking at a moment ago. And here we have many different options that I'm now displaying here. And when we go to the sub-item controls, this is where we see what happens in each status, right? So for my coming soon, I'll do the same thing that we did a moment ago. Let me just collapse these so we can see all the different statuses represented and what happens when we have a new coming soon. Well, it's everything that we just saw a moment ago in our real example. And not only do I have the step itself, but I also have the person or maybe the party, meaning that we don't need to pin it down to a specific person, but a transaction coordinator or photographer or whatever it might be for flexibility. So let's say that somebody's no longer part of the firm, no problem. We just switch out the person that's going to receive that notification, not interrupt the entire workflow that we built.
Right, and of course,
Also,
Mark, we should remind folks this is the template part. This is what's going to control when you create a new listing and they move into that coming soon phase of the listing cycle. These are all this is the checklist of steps of sub items that's going to just magically appear for their team to complete for that particular listing. And this gives your company the ability to define your own checklist, right? I think that's really where the magic happens, if you like, is a given checklist can be different for each organization, and this is where you set it up. And clearly, there's no code here, and this is a model that we've actually built within Purple Plum, and we use this throughout our real estate solution to provide that checklist kind of configurability, if you like.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad you brought that up because things change, right? We're not in a static world, right? So you might all of a sudden decide that there's a social aspect of how you present your listings that you want to integrate into your workflow, right? A new listing goes up, it's going to go on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, whatever you might want, but that can just as easily be added or removed into the workflow. So you're not stuck with something that was created, and as Gidon was mentioning, it's not code, right? We can just click right here on new sub item and add a new sub item, right? Or remove one. And you'll also see one of my favorite features here, the date offset, so that obviously not every action needs to occur simultaneously. So you can forward thinking, plan out how you want to handle each one of these cases. And again, we're talking about listings, but perhaps it's one of your last steps. I want to send out a gift, but I want to send out a gift 3 weeks after the closing, right? So you can set that offset in place so that you're notified at the right time to take that particular action. Now, let's go back into the board.
These are great questions.
How does Purple Plum recommend keeping track of prospects and client communication? This, to me, is one of the most exciting aspects of what Monday.com's CRM tool offers. And what we're going to do here, again, it's all tied in together as one view, one entire platform. And I'm going to go right up here into my CRM aspects of the platform. Now, what's so exciting about any of these views, whether we're talking about leads, contacts, accounts, whatever it might be, it all builds on itself. So not only can I put in the details of a client or a prospect of what they might be interested in, but I can track all of my activities with them. So whether it's a meeting, a call summary, a note, whatever I want, these are just labels, so they can really be custom to your needs. But what's really beautiful about this is I also have email built into the CRM solution. The way that this works is I'm actually sending this from my personal email account, so it doesn't interrupt deliverability. Will actually be in my sent folder. So if I'm using Outlook or Gmail, will actually be as if I sent it through my email itself, but it's done directly through Monday. I have all of the record of that email going through, and I can use commonly used templates for my business. Meaning that when I have a new client, I have an issue with the rental application, or there's something like a regular maintenance for property manager, like an HVAC, whatever it might be, I can click on this and have that whole language already set up. Now, what's the value in that? it's that I don't need to recreate the wheel every time I communicate, right? So when we talk about efficiency, I also want to talk about energy, right? If I'm writing the same message over and over again, it takes away from my ability to quickly go through the day. But if I can press one button, have the message already loaded and personalized to the person I'm sending it to, I've saved so much time and I've made it easier for everybody involved.
Right. And Mark, in addition to the efficiency, I think the other thing to add here, there's tremendous transparency, because were you to have sent this email from your regular Outlook, no one would have known that you had sent it. No one on your team would have been aware that you sent it unless you CC'd them or BCC'd them. And that can be messy, gets messy quickly. Whereas in this situation here, because you're initiating the email from within the Monday CRM, they are that email event is just being added to your timeline of activities that have occurred between you and your prospect or your client. And anyone on your team can come into the Monday CRM and see, oh, Mark sent an email last Thursday. I'm glad he was on top of it. I don't need to speculate what's going on there. And of course, the responses from the customer or the prospect in turn are routed through this timeline, so those will be there as well. So it's very easy for anyone on your team to have that full view of what's happened with the customer and promote maximum transparency. And that's really a big win from my perspective.
It's so funny when you bring that up, that transparency. I also want to touch on the ability to hide things as well, right? Because
selective
the value
transparency, at least it's intentional, right. Non-transparency. Right?
And so, what I'm hinting at here is the ability to hide certain items within a Monday.com account, meaning that maybe the financials are not something that the photographer should see, right? Or maybe there's file types and other opportunities where we say, this is all great, that we have a block of information that we want our entire user base, our employees to see, but here's some stuff that's just for management or just for the agent themselves. So you have that flexibility of having one single repository, but not giving everything out, right? Sharing everything to the whole team here.
I think we'll have to dedicate a whole episode just to talk about
Yes.
managing that transparency and permissions. That's a great idea.
Okay, one more question here. Can Monday.com help with onboarding new agents or other repeated activities throughout the year? The quick answer is yes, absolutely. And so we think about Monday, and I mentioned this earlier, how firms come to us with one goal in mind, whether it's transactions or marketing or whatever it might be. But when they start to experience all the value that Monday offers, they say, well, wait a minute, can we add this? Can we add that? So there is an entire kind of additional way of thinking about how Monday.com can operate for you, where it becomes truly a repository for SOPs, for standard onboarding of new agents, whatever you might want to really put in place here. And so again, looking at it from onboarding a new agent, well, here I can actually go through my entire interview process here. I can see when they've applied, do I want to have them come on? Did I reject them? But further, maybe I want to bring somebody on, and we've got a lot of unique ways in how we operate. So I can actually send out an email sequence, right? So I can say, day one, I want to give them a welcome letter and an overview of, here's all the MLS that you need to have access to, the mortgage lenders that we like to work with, the appraisers, whatever that information might be. And then 2 days later, here's a quick overview, or here's a recording on how to add a listing into Monday, or outside of Monday, it's your credentials into Outlook or Gmail or whatever it might be. But you can set it either an email sequence and just put it on autopilot, or you can have a list of files that somebody would have access to with instructions, right? So it's not just saying, here's your access into an MLS as an example. Instead, here's the MLS access. Here's how you're supposed to use the MLS, right? So it really works as an extension 24/7, a way for you to educate your employees But also, just as a completely different example, maybe we have some events that we want to map out. So we can go ahead and say, hey, we're going to have movie night. We're going to have, a cook-off. We're going to do whatever it might be. But this becomes a bigger than just the specific use case that you might come to.